We're we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy, where we have a casual and informal discussion about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and I'm once again joined by my esteemed colleague and fellow Star Trekker, Trekkie, the Doctor. Hello, Doctor.
Hello, are we live?
We are live.
All right,
Well,
just checking.
we're never really live, but we're the closest to being in real time we've ever been. We don't have too many episodes in the bank at this moment. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, we're only
Really?
this episode will air in about 3 weeks. So yeah, it's not so
Oh,
bad. Maybe 2
we
weeks.
better get cracking this weekend.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks.
Sunday, perhaps.
Perhaps, yes.
All right, so today we're talking about sins of the father, and I wanted to offer you, since you, Doctor, really love the Klingons, I wanted to offer you the chance to do the episode summary.
Why did I know you were going to do that? Okay, let me search my memory banks.
Now you haven't
The episode,
seen it, right? You haven't seen it in a
What?
couple of weeks, right?
Right, but I think I can do it.
All right, do it.
I think I can do it. You jump in if I miss anything major. But the episode starts off very much like a previous episode where Riker went aboard the Klingon ship, but now it's the reverse. We have a Klingon who is coming aboard the Enterprise as part of that exchange program.
That's right.
And you start off the episode and you're like, oh, okay, it's a sequel to that one. And we get this imposing, tall Klingon with this amazing voice. And
played by Tony Todd.
The great Tony Todd.
Anyways, we'll talk more about him later.
Yes. And he's great in this. And he comes aboard and he immediately takes to his post and sort of rubs many in their crew sort of the wrong way with his manner, and he's very brusque and all that, with the exception of Worf. Worf, he kind of he pays him compliments, and it's the reverse. He treats everybody else very roughly, and Worf he treats very gently, and it just really gets under Worf's skin until finally they have this confrontation in the Klingons' quarters, and
Wolf, I am your brother. Sorry.
A great revelation, which you just said, that he's his brother, and everyone in the audience goes, "What?" And the episode just it just takes this complete total turn.
Unexpected.
Completely unexpected, which I love. And now suddenly we get this whole story about Worf's family. Well, we get the explanation of how he has a brother who's a long lost brother. He's a survivor of the Khitomer massacre, but he was whisked off to stay with this other family, and he was eventually adopted into this other family. And he has chosen to come to Worf at this time because their family name is in jeopardy back on Kronos. They are accusing Worf's father and what's his name? Worf's brother. I forgot it.
Kern.
Thank you.
Kern. Commander
Worf.
Kern. Yeah.
Commander Kern. Worf and Kern's father is being accused of having been a Romulan accomplice,
a collaborator,
collaborator to the massacre that left Worf an orphan, as a matter of fact. And so Worf, his Klingon blood boils, and they're off to the Enterprise is off to Kronos to confront the charges and
clear
the name. And much intrigue unfolds, and it's very engrossing. And it
we find out actually that there was never that the Klingon High Council was never intending or never even knew Worf would challenge
because he's all the way in Starfleet.
Starfleet or whatever.
Right.
And it turns out that the real thing is a cover up for the real
the House of Duras.
Duras, yeah.
And the House of Duras is on the Ascension, and they need
this
cover.
Yeah, they're not even on the Ascension. Kempek says, what is it? He says like they're a powerful, very powerful house.
Very powerful house, and they're consolidating their power. And part of this power play is to take down the House of Moog, and in this way, in this fashion, and various intrigues happen. Picard gets involved and does some investigating on the planet.
Oh, that's right. So Kern, do you remember Kern was originally the Kshitij?
And then he is attacked.
And then
Picard has to
steps in and becomes the Kshitij. Yeah, that's right.
Right. Worf asks him, and so it's basically Worf and Picard versus the Klingon Empire, and as you said, it's revealed, the truth is revealed, and in a surprising turn, Worf decides to take one for the team, because it would basically unleash civil war amongst the Klingon Empire if it's revealed the truth about what the Duras family has done. And I think in a remarkable ending, and it's a very rare ending for a Star Trek episode. The episode ends on an extraordinary note of almost despair. The Klingon Council turns their back to Worf, and that's the end of the episode. Is you see Worf accepting bearing the weight of the shame that has been pronounced upon his house.
A fate truly worse than death for
yeah.
And
that's the end of the episode. And I have to, what do you have memories of seeing that for the first time? And how do you feel now seeing that?
Well,
that ending is so compelling.
I do remember as a kid seeing this episode and being really excited about a lot of things about it, but yeah, I remember being particularly moved by quite a few things. This whole episode actually is the start of another huge thing, a huge story that unfolds throughout Star Trek: The Next Generation. And you know, I often hear Star Trek being described as a show that only you could just hop in. Star Trek: The Next Generation and Star Trek: The Original Series, you can just hop in at any point and you can just watch it, and it changes from week to week. And while that's true for the most part, there's also a reward for people watching the series, which is there are a few of these like arcs that kind of are there, and I think this is the beginning of one. We get these kind of themes that flesh out over time, and I think this is one of the best ones. The whole Worf, this is where I think it gets kind of the engine
saga,
saga of Worf and the Klingons and things like that kind of just start. And so it's exciting to see that. We get a little hint previously with Susie Plaxon,
Kalar, right?
Kalar, Kalar, yeah. Anyways, very exciting. And so as a kid, I do remember that being cool, but I never really appreciated kind of the sacrifice Worf makes, because like now I kind of understand it to some degree. I've never been in a situation quite like this, but you're tested sometimes as you go through life, and your honor and things like that are very important to you. And so it is a little bit more meaningful for me as an adult. The thing I also remember being excited about as a kid is, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time we see the Klingon, the Imperial City in the Homeworld, and like really go to to Klinzai, which I think it's called, or Klinzai.
Oh, I called it Kronos.
Kronos, maybe it's Kronos, but I'm not sure. It's like we'll have to look it up, of course. But either way, it's the first city of the Klingon Empire.
You're absolutely right about the episodic nature of Next Generation, and this is a very atypical episode, and I think that's why I was excited about it back then, and I'm excited about it now, because this is Worf's story. With this episode, they really establish Worf as pretty much in the top tier of characters of Next Generation. I mean, you've got Picard, obviously, because he's the captain, and he has many ongoing stories, pretty much with Q. You know, Q and him continue on throughout the series.
And
Data,
through also Picard's, fascination with archaeology and things like that.
Right.
Those are interesting, like, stories that we explore as well.
Right. But I mean, you can string all the Q episodes together.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
It's like one little storyline.
In fact, aren't some of these episodes sold as box sets? Like, if I recall correctly, like on VHS, you used to get like the Klingon box set, and then you got the Q box set, and like the Borg box set, and like, there were like all these kind of like.
I just gave them away. I used to have them right there. Yeah.
You used to have them.
I have them. Yeah. And then of course Data is probably, Data competes with Picard for that top position. He has many ongoing storylines. But now with Worf, his story becomes almost just becomes linked with the rise and fall of the politics in the Klingon Empire, and it goes all the way through DS9. And this episode starts all of that, and I love it. I love the intrigue. I love the parts where Picard sort of goes undercover. I mean, literally, he's like, hiding himself.
I know, it's
under a hood and finding the
Celeste,
right, who was the
Worf's nurse,
and the dialogue that the Klingons have also takes on this almost pseudo Shakespearean.
Oh yeah, they have a very nice. Klingons have a very sort of formal way of speaking that harkens back to a human past, and as a matter of fact, I think even just like Klingons really aren't far from how we perceive maybe the Vikings culture, like a Viking type culture of marauders and raiders, and there's just something about Klingons that's reminiscent of some of these great warrior
today
cultures of our past, and even you're gonna say even today.
Yeah, I mean, just to take a soundbite out of the recent news, they had those bombings in Iran that the terrorists had, and the response of the Iranian police force is or I don't know if it's military police or whatever. They say, we will take revenge.
Right.
You don't imagine the U.S. ever, like the FBI or the military will say, we will avenge, but it's the Klingons sort of have that. Everything's just a little bit over the top almost, and it's juicy dialogue. It's the way they speak. There's a lot of everything just seems to be slightly elevated, and even the going back to the nursemaid, who's a great character, and I think Patrick Stewart had a great time, playing opposite her, trying to get her to, to give testimony, and the back and forth, and when she finally shows up and in
the council room, chamber.
Right, and I don't know if he's I guess he's a chancellor, and he's kind of like, "Oh, it's nice to see you," and her response is like, "You're still fat," or something like that. But the
Yeah.
way it's played off, it's just
Well, there's also a hint of a bigger story there that we get through just the dialogue, which is also really wonderful. Like, you see that there's this like Kim Peck is aged. He's an older kind of leader, and he is, like that's the big thing that you notice about him is he's imposing and rather large, but you imagine him as a youthful Klingon, and he even says in the one scene where he is revealing to Worf the truth about why everything's happening, is that he served with Moog, and he served with Worf's father. So there's this connection, and even Worf's father. Worf's family was a prominent family. It looks like, I mean, they could, first of all, they could afford a nurse for their children, Kaylest, and things like that. And she says to Picard, she's, in that dramatic kind of, but beautiful, sumptuous way, like, I am dead. I died. I once served a proud family and like a really, like honorable family. And now all that's over. It's like in one flash, the whole family collapsed, and like, you could see that that it was a very big blow to these characters, because they'd put a lot of hope in that family, and so perhaps had Worf's family not died, and he would be now on the council himself, or his father would be on the council, if not even, is it the emperor? Is Kim Peck the emperor of the Klingon Empire?
no,
Like,
I don't think so. No,
I forget how it works again, but
he's high up there, but I don't think he's.
I think the only emperor is Kahless, right? Like,
No, there are emperors,
yeah.
but I don't think he's the emperor.
Well, it's worth looking up. We'll look it up in a second, but yeah, but I really noticed that, and I loved that, like, through dialogue and just really good old-fashioned storytelling, we actually find out so much about Worf, his family, their place in the Empire, and also the state of the Empire, as a matter of fact, because it looks like they're being held hostage by a corrupt family. Oh, huh. Sounds familiar. An empire being held hostage by a corrupt family.
Why does that sound familiar?
Sounds so familiar. Okay, anyways, but oh, doctor.
Very, very pointed commentary.
Oh, doctor, you have
a singular wit.
I do sometimes. It's true. I apologize.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But anyways, very compelling stuff, and again, Worf's the solution is totally unexpected too. I knew that. Well, I hoped that Worf wouldn't have to die, but
that I knew. I'd forgotten how it was resolved, though.
Yeah, the discommodation. I mean, like it's actually really great. Again, just wonderful drama. I mean, skipping to the end here for a moment, but Patrick Stewart. This is one of those episodes where, like, Patrick Stewart, he's such a good actor because he manages to, like, be the most amazing performer, but he doesn't, like, steal the scene, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, he has a great way of, like, being
supporting
but like, but even just being epic, and it really is Michael Dorn's moment. You know what I mean? Like, it is, and it remains so. But there is that, like, exciting moment where Picard's like, Kim Peck threatens
they give him the knife. Yeah, I know.
Well, threatens the alliance between the Federation. He's like, you're talking about alliances when your honor, like, the Klingon Empire is built on lies right now. Like, he's just like, he just tells him, like, no, and he's like, and now I'm speaking as the captain of the Enterprise, and you will not harm this member of my crew. And it's like, and he's like, Picard's not messing around, like, and Kim Peck knows that, like, this is already a decorated captain, and the flagship of the Federation, and here he is defending Worf's honor. It's just, like, really exciting drama. It's just so good.
That moment that you just mentioned, actually, up until that moment, when I was rewatching it, one of the things that bothered me was when he does ask Picard to be his was it
Shadish.
Shadish. There was a little voice in the back of my head going, "Why isn't he ask Riker?" It seems like him and Riker have that bond, not him and Picard. But
honor compels
and then
Worf.
moving on.
You have to think of it, the honor compels Worf to ask Captain Picard. You know what I mean? Like
that,
and also he genuinely, like, I think, as you see here, based on, we've had lots of discussions about Picard's prowess in diplomacy and like his knowledge. The fact alone that Picard knows the response already in Klingon to accept the position of the Shadish, to me, is like, I was so,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, Worf asks him to be the Shadish, and then he responds in Klingon. Like, it's like he just knows. It's like, and he knows
Riker
all
have done that,
right, and he knows all the. Well, Riker might have been able to do it, but there's just something so. It's. But then he even knows like the nuances of the law. Like he tells Kahless not to speak unless it's an open, not to reveal the hand. He's like. He's like, no, you don't have to speak. All testimony has to be given in open council, and so there's just all these things like that are just so impressive. And it just, again, we've probably beaten this point into the ground, and we got some interesting responses that we have to address on YouTube, but a lot of interesting discussion. And by the way, to the viewers who do take the time to comment and discuss, we're so immensely grateful, because it actually changes our ideas. And sometimes, as I've said before, we don't really know everything. We are casual, we are informal, we're huge fans, but we're not necessarily the most knowledgeable fans. So it is always wonderful to get insight from other fans. And so please, I hope you're enjoying being a participant on our comments. But what I will say is that, we talked about why don't we have a diplomatic corps on board the Enterprise, and again, it just feels to me like it's evident from watching how Picard handles situations and how the rest of the crew, that diplomacy is just a natural part of training in Starfleet. And I think that, like, just kind of putting more thought into it, it's like it wouldn't hurt to have a diplomatic kind of background for any military officer in any military. Can you imagine the difference our military would have if more of the soldiers and so on had a little bit of training in diplomacy and what diplomacy means and how it works, and and so on and so forth, just so that if there's ever the opportunity to interact with another countrymen, country folk, and then you're able to represent your country in a wonderful way, like in a very like diplomatic way, I should say. I think that would enhance a military operation to the nth power, because I think right now, and we're seeing this as evidence, in our local law enforcement departments, and and just things, in a situation as tense as it can be, where you're in a situation that involves weaponry and your life is on the line, etc. It's hard to be diplomatic. But if you had the training, then maybe the outcome could be dramatically different, as we see so many times in Star Trek. But I digressed majorly here, Doctor. So
all right, it's a casual and informal, right?
Informal, yeah, it's true. I have a couple of notes that I didn't realize I took when I watched the episode, and I guess we can go through them. But I wanted to remark on Tony Todd for a moment.
Oh yeah.
So recently, fans will know him as Zoom on the. Do you watch The Flash?
I watched the first season, but I haven't caught up to it.
I think it is the first season where they introduce Zoom, isn't it? Like the other
Reverse?
speedster.
Yeah.
He's just
Maybe
kind
I
of
haven't finished watching the first season.
maybe I don't know
I
where
was
they do
enjoying
yeah.
it, but maybe I just
Yeah.
haven't finished watching it.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. It's not like the
Yeah, no,
best,
I
but
enjoy it. Yeah.
But anyways, he plays the other speedster. Ooh, your
Ooh.
subspace communication.
Oh. It's Emma. Hold on a minute.
Okay. So let's look up what the Klingon Empire, what
Can I call you back?
Kimpek is.
It's going well. I'm actually on the air right now on Starfleet Boy. So you are as well.
Hi.
Sorry, Sahel said he wanted to do one today. I said, yeah, sure, why not? I'm home. I'm sorry. You okay? All right, I'll call you back. We're almost done.
We are almost done.
I love you.
Aww.
Sahel says, oh, he's going, oh. Hey, she wants to see the cat.
Oh, he's sleeping right now. He's like having a little cat nap. But he might make an appearance whenever.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. That's actually.
Go ahead.
I think we really enjoy the occasional.
Does that record everything?
Oh yeah, we can't really stop Hangouts. It's just that's how it's that's like how it is, you know. But I did take the opportunity to look up Kimpek's role, and he is the Chancellor of the Klingon High Council. So yeah, that's
Chancellor Goron, right?
Yeah, like exactly. So I totally forgot that. Like like Gorkon and Gowron.
Yeah. So back to Tony Todd.
Yeah, so he's just a really great actor, and he
was the Candyman.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Not Sammy Davis Jr., but
no, the awful
horror movies.
The horror movies, which I can't watch. I can't watch those horror movies.
I've never seen them either, actually. But I remember the posters, and I think I want to say he was in the Final Destination movies, maybe.
Oh, he might have been. Was he Death?
I think I saw that with Yusu, maybe. I don't know. That was a very long time ago.
Well, he is also in Deep Space Nine. He
as his brother.
Kern, and we'll have him back again later.
Many times.
A couple times more on Star Trek: The Next Generation. But so it's good to have him, and his voice is very distinct, and he's
great. Now, Deep Space Nine, isn't he also? Do you have IMDb up?
No, I can pull it up right now. Go on.
Okay. No, I isn't he old Jake Sisko?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yes, he is. Oh
yeah, it's great. He's a great I love him. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
And
you're absolutely right, that episode. Oh my gosh.
He has wonderful rapport with Dorn, and then of course, Michael Dorn, we can't continue on any further without commenting that this episode really is an amazing showcase for Dorn and his character. And as I said, his character sort of, enters the top tier of Star Trek with this episode, and his importance in the greater universe. And I think Dorn rises to the occasion. I mean, he has before this episode, we'd gotten a few Klingon. We'd had a few Klingon episodes, including the ones where those 3 Klingons are woken up and they're sort of from the past, and we'd had the Klingons that were aboard that Riker was hanging out with, and I think I'd mentioned that those Klingons sort of seemed, rewatching it now, they seemed sort of they're not the real Klingons, like they're not the Klingons that I really like. The Klingons from this point on sort of take on a more, like I said, it's almost like a fantasy type,
I think,
scenario. It's the kind of the plots and the characterizations and the characters that we see come out of Klingon storylines beginning from this point on, they're all, it's almost like they're out of some sort of fantasy world. They're not the typical Star Trek type plots and stuff. It's juicier. It's more, I mean, to steal something from the current television landscape, it's more Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
the Klingon stories fit a Game of Thrones style show more than they do a typical Star Trek episode.
But you know, like, and again,
I love it.
This is this is you know, I feel like, again, Star Trek: The Next Generation, because it had a proper run as a television show, it really took advantage of and utilized the opportunity to flesh out these characters. I mean, the original series, we had of course the Klingons were introduced in the original series, but we really, we only really knew so much about them. And then in the films, you get the Klingons in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and then you get them again in Star Trek 3, which we seem to have stopped on, and we're not going to record anymore.
What? No, we will. Dude, we're going there. Don't worry about it. Ay, Dios.
But anyways, that was it.
We've still got how many seasons left of Next Generation?
That wasn't an underhanded kind of thing or anything like that. It's just Star Trek 4. It's coming up. But anyways,
coming soon to a theater near you.
The only thing you really know about the Klingons until Star Trek 6 is that they're an enemy of the Federation, and that they're brutal and ruthless and barbaric, and they're kind of used as a way to show
they're one note fairly.
Yeah, right, exactly. And then in Star Trek 6, which
you get nuance, which is after this,
so it's really Next Generation is responsible again for bringing Klingons into a different light, if you will. And so I think
nuance and adding all this intrigue and really setting them up as a very distinct culture, and sort of those types of storylines, and it extends into Deep Space Nine, and
much like how the Ferengi come alive in Deep Space Nine too, because had it not been for Quark, I think we would continue to think of the Ferengi as a kind of a laughable, bumbling, barbaric kind of group of aliens.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I think also some credit has to go to just everybody was involved in the production, in terms of the lighting and the production design. As you said, I think this is the first time that we see the Homeworld, and they did a great job. I mean, the Klingon Homeworld is just, it's just a world of shadows, and you just don't know what's lurking behind these corners. It feels like a planet where, you could, it's almost like a spooky old castle that just covers the whole world. It's medieval.
There is that's a great way of describing it. Like, the aesthetic of the Klingon Homeworld is reminiscent of, like, the medieval Europe and castles and just the whole thing. Klingons have their own form of chivalry, their code of honor, and it's just an interesting way. It's an interesting shift that we make, from the, let's call them the original series era Klingons to the Next Generation era Klingons. And for me, the original series Klingons were okay. And I know there were always fans that dressed up as Klingons and things like that. But, like, once you get to the Next Generation, that's when I really started to love Klingons. And I was like, it's like, Klingons are amazing, So going back to the kind of, I have another kind of note here. I really enjoyed how the the first like whatever it is, 15 to 20 minutes of Commander Kern on the Enterprise had, let's just say like nothing ever happened and it was just a a ship exchange. It was actually pretty humorous so far. Some of the things that I remember being funny were like, was how in front of Captain Picard, Kern's like very he's very eager to please Picard. Like he even like holds himself back and he tries to be as like eloquent as possible around Picard, but then around everyone else he's just like this bossy kind of like barking orders and things like that. And even that scene where Riker tries to help him, it's so intense.
Yeah.
And he's like, had this been had this been a Klingon ship, I would have
killed you already.
But then, interestingly and funny, I think there is humor there that Kern probably intended that another Klingon might have understood, but Riker took it very seriously. And it isn't until the captain's mess hall scene where they're having that turkey dinner with caviar that he just kind of laughingly says, "I almost had to kill your Commander Riker." Like it's like just this kind of like it was a humorous start to the episode, and I really liked all that stuff that was happening. And I'm glad that the episode took a turn to the plot thickens direction with the Klingons and the discommodation. But I really liked how like you really would. I don't recall having any clue where this was going when I first saw this, and I thought it was clever that the writers just started it off as what would be like maybe a lighthearted episode, and then turned it into a really heavy episode.
Absolutely, it was it was a total surprise. I think there have been a few other episodes in the past that I think I've said, oh, it started off this way and then it suddenly whoosh, goes this way. And this one I thought was exceptionally clever because it's playing on that other episode that we had already seen, like you said, rewarding longtime viewers who they're going to be like, oh, this episode is going to be about, it's going to be the reverse of that episode. And it actually, you imagine it being a Riker episode, because like you said, that scene in the turbo lift and, you expect, well, it's gonna, Riker is gonna have to somehow intercede, and maybe there's gonna be tension between him and the Klingon officer, and blah blah blah.
There might have been a space battle or some kind of something. I mean,
you can almost picture the whole episode in your head as soon as it starts, and you're sort of like, so you, as a viewer, it's almost like it's you're sort of in. You're tricked into complacency about how to deal with it. Like, oh yeah, I know how it's gonna go. Oh yeah, look at Wesley. Yeah, okay, he can't deal with it. Oh yeah, right. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? He's Worf's brother.
Yeah. That scene is great. The revelation, etc. But I kind of liked how he was taunting Worf in that one moment. And he was describing the Enterprise as like built for luxury and comfort. And that it's probably thinned out his blood, and then Worf gets crazy and like grabs the chair and like he's like,
that was great.
So your blood is not thin after all. It's like
that was great. Yeah, up until that moment, you're still like, oh, I know how this is gonna go. But then when he reveals himself to be the brother, and then you can hear the whole thing about the family, and that they're throwing the family into shame and all this stuff, then you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, and then Picard set course for the first city of the Klingon Imperial Empire. I like that. Like just everything he says is like,
yeah,
Patrick Stewart.
and it becomes really a two-hander between Dorn and Patrick Stewart. It's almost actually Patrick Stewart steals the show, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does, but he again graciously, like he doesn't
graciously, but he does.
I mean, it's just it's Patrick Stewart. I mean,
he's badass in this episode. He really is.
Just God, like he's like a real true gem in our time, and it's amazing that like a lot of people, who didn't know Patrick Stewart before Star Trek: The Next Generation, I feel bad for them, but he's always been amazing. Like I remember him as Gurney.
Dune.
Yeah, and then
what is it like? What's that line? like a horse's ass. I return to the desert or whatever. I don't
But
know.
then, but then Life Force, he's in Life Force. Like, do you remember Life Force? You
He's
don't.
in Life Force. Yes,
He's in
he's an
Life.
Excalibur, dude.
He's in Excalibur. That's right. I forgot. He's also in Excalibur. He's in so many great
Yeah.
things. Patrick Stewart's been around for a while, but then, I mean, and just recently, I don't know if you've seen Logan. Did you go see Logan? And
I saw it in the theater twice. Yeah,
did you
I
see
thought
the
it
black
was
and white?
exceptional.
Did you see the black and white?
No, I missed it because it was like at 11 something at night.
Oh, that's a shame.
Couldn't
Anyways,
watch
but
it.
just him and Logan. I mean, just so you think
Yeah.
an actor gets, an opportunity to play one amazing, great character, right? So you think, oh, that's like for William Shatner, it's Captain Kirk, and for Patrick Stewart, it might have
Oh, I
been.
thought you were gonna say T.J. Hooker, but okay, yeah, Kirk is fine.
Yeah. And for Patrick Stewart, like, you would think, okay, well, Captain Picard might be his greatest thing. No, he goes on to be
Professor
X, and like define Professor X on the cinema as like no one else could. I mean, even James
and his performance lives on through
James McAvoy.
Right.
James McAvoy is the Chris Pine to William Shatner's Kirk.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it's like kind of like that thing. But anyways, the point is that like, yeah, I mean, Patrick Stewart can't help it. He is such a great actor. Like, he's just naturally so amazing, and I'm glad to see these moments. But again, he is gracious. Like, I don't ever get the impression that he's like stepping in front of actors.
No. It's so good, and I think the story was just really, like I said, it's just a juicy story, and like you, and to echo what you said, this is the episode where you really fall in love with Klingons. Indeed, this is the beginning of the next generation style Klingons, the true next generation style Klingons. It wasn't those previous episodes. This is where this is where it starts.
Yeah, those previously it was just kind of like more. There was like a little teasers, but this is like they gave us the dinner finally. It's like here's your full course.
Blood. What do they eat? Blood.
The blood sausage or whatever. Like, I don't know. But the Great Hall. Go ahead. I was gonna mention that the Great Hall set.
Gorgeous.
But should look familiar to you because it's that weird kind of triangular roof, and we'll see that over and over again in Star Trek: The Next Generation. I think we've already seen it a couple of times, but you'll recognize it again in the Mask of Musaka episode for sure. Is one place where I can recall that they use that same kind of set. I know. Wait till we get to that one. Anyways, whoa! I just triggered some like memories or something. Look at you. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say is that there was when this episode aired, and moving on. This is when the idea of a Klingon spinoff of some kind started to sort of make rounds, and people were like, oh well, but we could do this, we could do that. And I was just going to ask you if you could give any show give it a Klingon remake, what show would it be? Like, it's this show, but it's Klingon. you know how they Klingon, there's Klingon Shakespeare and all this stuff. Like, what show would you give a Klingon makeover to?
I feel like a great Klingon makeover episode would. There's a few that come to mind. There's a few that come to mind, but Mission Impossible seems like a good one to translate into Klingon. Could you imagine like an elite task force of Klingons that go on these like impossible missions for the Klingon Empire, right? So that's one that I had in mind. But if you want to take another tip, another
that's interesting.
If you want to go in another direction, you could do the show that's on right now that everyone loves. That's based on Jamie from Doctor Who, Jamie McCrimmon's character.
Outlander.
Outlander could be a great Klingon. Like a Klingon outlander.
Klingon
Like
Outlander.
a Klingon heroine gets transported to the Klingon past, to the time of Kalis or something like that, you know,
I love it. That's great.
so that could be another one that I see translating to Klingon.
That's phenomenal.
And then I guess
Those are great,
and
great
then I guess the
choices.
obvious choice should be like Game of Thrones or Vikings. You know, I feel like those Game of
Yeah,
Thrones could, as you had said earlier, they just kind of like the Klingons just kind of lend to that, and I think that
yeah,
kind of like stage, that level of like intrigue and like fighting for the throne, if you will, is
correct.
something that would be very obviously Klingon, as you had said earlier. So yeah, I agree with that one. What about you?
It's,
What shows
I,
do you
oh,
see being Klingon
I would,
Klingonified?
in a heartbeat, I would do House of Cards.
Yes,
I would pay serious money to see Robin Wright Penn
as a
and,
Klingon.
Kevin Spacey as Klingons.
Well, she plays an Amazon in Wonder Woman.
And yeah, so that's about that's probably as
Close.
close as we'll
We
get.
get, she's
Yeah.
pretty fierce, I have to say.
Gosh, I
So
called her Robert Wright Penn, and she's no longer married to Sean Penn. I'm so sorry. I feel
uh,
really bad. She divorced
well,
him like 20 years ago.
if she's listening, we
Fuck. Sorry.
apologize. Sorry about that,
Yeah.
Mrs.
Damn.
Miss Robin Wright.
It's Robin Wright. Sorry about that. I'm dating myself there.
Claire, Claire, you have dishonored me in this situation, and I must tell you that I will kill you. No, I don't know. It's like,
Can you imagine a Klingon Kevin Spacey doing those asides straight to the camera
I
in the
mean,
Southern accent?
that would be hilarious if we had a Klingon with a Southern accent. I think that would be
Only
pretty.
Kevin Spacey could do it.
He could pull it off. He would do it. Can we talk a little bit about Duras?
Oh, of course. You're right. This is the first appearance of the House of Duras, which is, of course, is gonna. I mean, God, that house. Cheers to the House of Duras.
He is such. I don't know how to describe him other than say that Duras is a complete bitch. I hated him
Wow. Yeah.
so much. You love
Yeah.
to hate Duras, and I think that's like a really a really powerful thing, like to have someone introduced that you really don't like.
Yeah. The House of Duras becomes this ongoing foe for Worf because obviously, we'll have other Durases, the Duras sisters. Isn't there a little boy that they're gonna ascend to the throne at one
Oh
point?
gosh, there's so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much. See, that's the thing. It's just, it's great. I love it.
it's the beginning of a huge thing. Yeah, it's true.
It's
You're right.
it's like Macbeth or something. It just keeps going, and I remember as a kid just living for these Klingon episodes, and again, the Duras family, golly, I was very sad actually when I can't think of who. There really hasn't been anything else. I mean, I think the Duras family, that whole thing just kind of stopped after, I guess after Gowron ascended to being chancellor. But I wish there would have been like just some little Duras somewhere just kicking around, just still trying to stick it to Worf, because it was just so juicy. To see that kind of melodrama there. But yeah, the Duras family is definitely a family to hate on Star Trek.
Yeah, it's true. And it is kind of a sad thing that the Klingon Empire is actually, this great empire is basically hostage to this very like prominent and well-to-do family that is not above lying and deceit and treachery, and it's like, it kind of puts this kind of, it does kind of, it does
Mm-hmm.
it does kind of strike at the I know what you're.
Sorry, I was riveted to those James Comey things earlier today. So you're saying all this. I'm like, we talking about Star Trek, or are we talking about
but like,
reality?
so isn't this a wonderful
Scary
reason why our fiction is sometimes a warning of what can happen?
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear that I don't want to go all out and accuse any family of being like this, but one just cannot help but wonder.
Kushner does sound Klingon, but okay, go ahead.
You said it, not I.
Right.
But anyway,
I'll take the book.
You'll take it. Okay, great. Let's hope I will be your Shadish, and use diplomacy when the time is right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but you're right. We haven't even met Lursa and B'Etor yet. And I think the Memory Alpha has a good article about the House of Duras that I highly recommend everyone.
I would read a novel of.
I bet there are
this stuff.
There's got to be. There's got to be.
I'm sure there is. I have to confess, I haven't read them. I know there's a Kalis novel, which is kind of going a little off topic, but still, I think, this starting with this episode, the storytelling involved, it's more like the kind of plots and character development that you expect in a fantasy novel, rather than your typical tech heavy science fiction, and it affords a chance for the show to almost jump a genre. It shows the ability for the show to expand its boundaries as to what kind of stories it can tell. One of the, again, going back to one of my favorite shows, Doctor Who, one of the great things about Doctor Who is that you can almost tell any kind of story within the framework of that show. And the Star Trek, I think, Next Generation pushed what kind of story it could tell when it introduced the Klingons as they did in this episode.
Right.
And it was something that you could tell a more almost fantasy type or medieval type, whatever, the story filled with more intrigue and stuff like that. It does feel Shakespearean. The politics in the background and all that. So bless you. And
it disappeared for a second. We're almost no, we should be at that time where you consult the book. What does the book say, Doctor? And when we say the book, of course, we are referring to the Star Trek: The Next Generation companion, written by the amazing Larry Nemecek.
I finally saw, because I'm very behind on all the social media interactions that you have through the show, but I saw that he responded to you on Twitter.
Oh yeah,
that's super exciting, dude.
I've noticed that he's very engaged with Star Trek fans. Cool. Yeah, he's really seems like a very nice and wonderful person. But I am not surprised.
Well, if he's listening, if he's watching,
thank you.
Thank you. I love your books, and I show it off just because I want people to know this is. And you can
still get this book through Amazon.com. Larry Nemecek has a store there, and I feel like I remember you can get the book there.
And again, sometimes I do feel a little guilty because I don't want to. I don't read everything that's here.
By the way,
obviously,
no, of course. But by the way,
want people to go ahead.
while you're looking up this episode, you were right. It is Quonos that they go to, the homeworld. I don't know where I got Klinzai from.
Oh, it won an Emmy for art
Whoa.
direction for
What?
production designer Richard James
Very nice.
and set decorator Jim Mees. Well, it's well deserved. Like I said, that they went crazy in their production design.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't. Wow, he's in Platoon? I don't remember him. Wow, it says that Tony Todd, who was a longtime Trek fan, he's an actor and a playwright. I didn't realize that. And has played many stage, TV, and film roles. He auditioned 4 times for guest spots on The Next Generation before he scored with the part of Kern, who would return later in the series. Yeah.
Oh, I have a little bit in between here. I wasn't wrong. So Klingani or Klinzahai or Kaz were all names of the Klingon homeworld before it was Quonos. They predate Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, have offered several other names. According to the Starfleet Medical Reference Manual released in 1977, the Klingon homeworld was the planet Klingoni or Klingoni, also known as Epsilon Sagittarii b. According to Star Trek Maps, Chart B, released in 1980, the homeworld was the planet Kaj, and the star it orbited was called Klingon. In the reference book, the Worlds of the Federation, which is where I'm getting it from. I have the Worlds of the Federation. Oh, cool. The homeworld was called both Klinzai and Kling. The name Klinzai first appeared in 1984 novel The Final Reflection. Kling and Klinzai have also been used.
I read that
in the FASA RPG, which I used to play, and various other novels, as well as in the Star Trek Starfleet Command video game series before the release of Star Trek VI.
The FASA one. That's the one with the whales in the... Yeah.
So I wasn't wrong. I just had a very old name in my head for Quonos.
Yes, hey, I respect that. Dude, do you realize... I didn't realize it. Do you realize who the Elder Klingon is?
You mean Kay Lest, the nurse?
No, I guess he's the Chancellor, or he's acting as a
Kempek.
Yeah, do you know who that is?
No, who is that?
He's appeared previously on... Wait, did he appear previously? Or does he appear later? Well, he plays another prominent Klingon.
Really? On the planet of intergalactic peace in Star Trek V. Yeah. Oh crap! I forgot about that. Is it the same character?
It's the same. No, it's the same actor. It's veteran actor Charlie Copper brought pride and forbearance to the role of the Elder Klingon, traits that because of a weak script he was unable to show off in the part of General Cord.
Oh, that's right.
General Cord in Star Trek V.
Oh wow, you're absolutely right. That is him. That's funny. That's so good. I totally had forgotten. What a great reprisal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's a reprisal though, because Star Trek V came out in '89. Yeah.
What a great
this episode air.
What a great way to continue. Like he's like
this is after Star Trek V.
Wow.
Because this is 1990.
Yeah.
Coño, so he made it right after. Pretty much. Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's great.
All right.
Kempek. You are still fat, Kempek.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, look, for Emma, there's Kitty Cat.
Oh, I'm missing it.
He's making an appearance. Look, hi there. Look at him. Hi, Arthur. His head looks like it's disappearing because of how bright it is outside. Wait, did you read anything from the book?
I did.
That was it.
That was it. Well, there's a lot more stuff, but we pretty much.
Well, just Just a few little.
And I've been told by Emma that whenever the cat is in shot, I should shut up.
Oh wow!
Because then it takes away from the cat being on the screen. So
I know that the captain's dining room or his mess hall is seen for the first time in this episode. And it looks just like the conference room.
Isn't it I thought it was the conference room.
It's exactly the same set.
I thought it was the conference room.
But I think we see it again later I know it even had the conference table there, I think, but
hence I think it's the conference room.
It is the conference room. Kahless tells Picard that Moog was loyal to the Emperor. However, rightful heir will later establish that the Klingons haven't had an Emperor in 300 years. It can be assumed that Kahless was abstractly referring to the Emperor Kahless and his guiding principles for all Klingons. So that's a good assumption I would agree with.
I can.
Picard refers to the Klingon state as the Klingon Imperial Empire, a redundant designation which was never used again. That's funny.
Well, on that note, I think.
Shall we give it the rating?
Oh, this is an easy rating. This is a 10.
Oh wow. I'm gonna give it a 10 too. There's nothing to dispute.
There's nothing to dispute. Nothing at all.
An easy 10. Hey, I'm just noticing that season 3 is really freaking awesome. Like we're giving a lot of high ratings, I think, for season 3.
It's all downhill after season 3.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised as we continue our journey. Well, on that note, unpleasantly pleasantly continuing, I must bid you adieu, Doctor, and once again it was delightful to have you, and
a rare weekday excursion for us,
which is irrelevant to our audience, to be honest, because
but I like to point it out.
All right, that's fine. But yes, on a rare excursion for us. But I look forward to the next one. So live long and prosper, and we'll see you next time.